continuing interview with Stacy, Mrs. Reaper Go. And we're pre-recording it. We couldn't do it live because we kept losing signal where we're at, so we're doing the video now. Now, just a little disclaimer. Has Reaper put you up to any of your answers?
No.
And he explained to you that he wanted you to give your honest 100% opinion, no matter who likes it or dislikes it, him included.
Yes.
Okay. And there were no animals harmed in the filming of this, right? There were no children abused. There were no unspeakable acts. Okay. So we got cut off. We were just on the part where you're talking about, well, we're talking about the show, and you were talking about the two different people. So you're saying he is two different people? Reaper, so he has a TV persona and then a...
No, because James doesn't have a filter, Reaper doesn't have a filter. James will do anything to help anybody, regardless of who they are. Reaper will do anything to help anybody, regardless of who they are.
Well, now, that's not the opinion of people that have watched the show.
Well, because the show just portrays Reaper as a hot-headed asshole. The show never portrays anything positive that he did, tried to do.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because the show needed a villain. And they probably didn't realize they needed a villain. They needed somebody to hate on until they got you and they realized how good it was for the show. So then they just kept playing on that.
So
they've got plenty of nice guys and wormy guys and guys that are just, you know, boring, quiet, they just want to race. That's it. And then then James came along, and his car was as loud as he was, as far as, you know, graphicked out and just unfiltered, and just was able to think for himself and speak for himself.
So, in your honest opinion, you feel like that they made stuff up to make it look bad?
They didn't necessarily make stuff up. They just chose what they wanted to air.
Explain. So we see him grabbing Doc by the throat. We see him, you know, grabbing Shane by the throat. You see him, you know, being confrontational.
Right.
Is he confrontational?
Well, he doesn't put up with anybody's shit, but he doesn't just walk through the world grabbing people by the throat and throwing them around. I mean, it takes a lot. In fact, before those two, I don't know that I'd ever seen that happen.
So,
but the Shane thing, you know, like, he just kept taunting you, pushing your buttons, like push, push, push. And that was very early on in the filming and of you being on the show. So,
what prompted that?
Well, for weeks it was the Reaper and Shane race. I mean, it was just call-outs over and over and over. At some point, you'd give it up and let you move up the list.
Now, so a little bit of history on that. Was it that they were just going back and forth?
Sometimes they were going back and forth, but other times there was like nobody else to race.
Like what? Explain.
Like
There's 10 people on the list. How was there nobody else to race?
Well, let's say you and Shane were 6 and 7. You know, 5 and 4 were either Rogue, pretty much singled out from day one because
I'll just say
you had
Reaper.
such a strong...
Just say Reaper, because we're not taking this thing. It's me.
Okay. Well,
We're getting your take on this whole street outlaw thing.
Right. Well,
Something that that's never happened between you and I before.
No.
I mean, I know your feelings, but I don't want everybody else to know your feelings about it.
Well, I feel like James went out there with such a huge passion, thinking that it was racing. And don't get me wrong, it's racing. I mean, there's nothing, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well,
I mean, it's not...
As he has always said, the racing, the race when the two cars pull up there, the racing is real.
Yes, it's not scripted, it's real. But it's just different from like you go to the track. There's rules, and typically they apply to everybody, and you know it's ran properly. This deal, for the most part, was just a shit show. I mean, it's not fun to stay up and watch the sun come up. You know, at the beginning, one night a week. But you could just see the games from the beginning. I thought surely that you would last like, 2 or 3 weeks after being out there. I was like, oh, he's not going to do this much longer. And then 5 years later, they're still doing it.
Why, in your opinion, one, he says he didn't watch the show.
Right. Oh, I didn't watch the show.
So, what brought this thing that if he didn't watch the show, how did he know how people were seeing him on the show?
Social media. And other people that watch the show that would call and tell you about it. But
so now he quit once.
Right.
In the very beginning.
Right.
And why did he stay?
Because he gave his word that he would.
He gave his word that he would. Explain that.
Well,
did he give his word to Chief?
No, he gave his word to production that he would be there to do his part, to do his job for the show. Now, I'm sure the rest of the world sees, his job was to just come out and be an asshole. And that was not your job. Your impression of what your job was to be out there with a car that was ready to race when you were called upon to do so. Which is what the job consisted of.
So, did he ever play games?
No.
Why would somebody just from TV viewers, why would somebody, the person you're talking about versus the person they've seen, why would he not play the same games they play to get ahead?
Because that's just not his nature. That's not how it's not, I don't know the word, that's not how he's wired. That's not how that's not how he saw what was going on out there.
In your opinion, well, just tell us, what was his thoughts when he first went on the show? When he first went officially on the show, not for the time he showed up and for the one episode.
Oh, that he was a racer on the show.
No, but when he was actually contracted, was he contracted from the beginning?
They offered him a contract in the beginning, but in the beginning he turned it down.
Why is that?
Because he didn't need to be contracted. He didn't need the job. I guess I don't know if that's the right way to say that or not. But
well, if he wasn't contracted, so was he getting paid?
They offered to pay him, and he said no.
Why is that? If somebody's offering you, if you're going to be there, and somebody's offering to pay you,
because he wanted to do what he enjoyed. Initially it was a hobby, and it was
his word that he wouldn't.
Right.
Okay, so what was behind the scenes? What did it? What consisted of? Did he ever miss a race night?
No.
Did he ever back down from a race?
No.
He raced his car no matter what?
Yes.
Okay. Did
Yep. Absolutely he did. Even all the way to the bitter end.
so
When I say bitter end, I say my bitter end, because forcing you
let's hit upon that here in a minute. So
okay.
when he first came on, he went up the list.
Yep.
Why didn't he ever go to number 1? Was his car not fast enough?
It was fast enough. It's just the people ahead of him on the list had been on the list longer, and they figured out how the games were played, and they knew how to play the game. You didn't know that you needed to. Reaper didn't know he needed to know how to play a game. He thought the name of the game was race.
Okay. So was it just his stubbornness to want to stay? And what did it take for him to show up at every race night? You were there. You know the times, things that went wrong with the car, and you know the backstory that nobody else knows.
I mean, basically, if it was fixing a broke car, that consists of tearing it apart, overnighting parts, staying up half the night or the whole night to try to get it put back together, to try to get it tested, to get to race night. Lots and lots of those. Thrashing. Lots of thrashes to make sure that the car was ready to race. I mean, to go to race night and race.
Now,
Never, not once, did we roll out there with a broke car in the trailer, stand in a driver's meeting for a call out. When the call out came, say, "Oh, I'm broke." No, that never happened. Not once.
so what was the? Did it put a strain on the marriage?
Oh, absolutely.
Explain.
Well, I mean, it just put a strain on me, because I didn't like to see all the blood, sweat, and tears that you throw into something to get nothing positive in return. I mean, I didn't see a positive return out of it. I mean, not really. I mean, there was no. I couldn't see any satisfaction out of that deal. Thrashing and staying up late, and then to get out to race night after all that you put into it, for games to be played where you couldn't race, and then, you know, as time went on into the season, and Reaper began to develop relationships with people, you know, he spent countless hours on the phone trying to make the show better. I mean, I specifically remember one day, 12 straight hours on a telephone.
Why?
Because he genuinely cared about the show. He genuinely cared about the people on the show. He has a huge passion for the sport of racing. He saw what the show did for the sport and the motorsports industry as a whole, and he was excited to be a part of that and wanted to see it continue to flourish.
So, what was his feelings about the list in general?
Well, I mean, he just wanted to race. I mean, yes, there was the old backstory of he had the fastest car back in the day, and he wanted to be number one and be the fastest guy in town again. But way he was the fastest guy back then was nowhere, no way like it was out there with those 9 other cars.
So you feel like he ever just didn't respect the other guys?
I don't think he didn't respect them. I really feel like they didn't know how to take him. They didn't know how to handle him because some of them have been out there so long, it's just a job. It's no longer their passion. They don't care. They don't seem to, I shouldn't say they don't care because I don't know their personal feelings. I shouldn't speak for them, but they don't appear. Some of them make it just seem like it's just a job.
Well, now early on, when he first came on the show, Sean and Big Chief were doing the interview, and they portrayed that they brought him on the show to shake the list up.
Yes.
Because everybody had kind of grown stale.
Right.
And
I think that you should. I think Reaper shook the list harder than they intended for it to be shook.
So you've talked many times, and you know, did that list ever mean anything to him?
It meant everything to him. Otherwise, he would have thrown his hands up, walked away, and said, "Oh, I'm not doing this."
What do you think it meant to him?
He liked when things meshed. He liked the fact that they were a team. He liked the camaraderie, and he liked to race.
In the conversations, why did he want to be on that list?
Because he wanted to be the best.
So,
and to be the best, you have to beat the best at their own.
So he felt like when he got on the list, he was racing the fastest guys
Absolutely.
in the country.
Absolutely.
So there was a respect there.
Yes.
Okay. So.
Yes, because once we didn't go to the racetrack. We did an occasional occasionally we did no prep races. But our life did not revolve around the racetrack. We went out on Friday night for fun, or we went to a no prep race over the weekend. Other than that, cars got put up. We didn't, our life didn't revolve around the car. And yes, there was absolutely a level of respect, especially once we got out there in person and realized how fast those cars actually were on the street.
Well,
I think that raised the level of respect once that came into perspective.
now, he said before, he knew he had the fastest car when he went on that list.
Yes.
What happened when he brought a car that was faster ET-wise on a racetrack than anybody else's car out there?
Well, they were scared to death. I mean,
now
who wants the new guy to come out there and take over?
So
big personality, fast car, kind of made them all a little anxious, in my opinion.
So did he ever think that he was in over his head?
No.
Did he ever think I don't have what it takes to be number one on that list?
Oh, absolutely not.
You know Reaper, aka James, better than anybody else. So, what do you think drove him to keep putting up with this?
Some days I ask myself that exact same question.
Well, you've asked him that question, haven't you?
Sure I have.
Do you remember what his answer was?
I don't.
turn? Were things always bad between him and Big Chief?
Nah. Well, I think that's one of those things. I felt like when I said, you know, big car, big personality, or fast car, big personality, you intimidated all of them. I felt like they were intimidated by you overall, the package. So things were bad with him initially, but I think it quickly got that way when you wouldn't conform to his program. When you realize you can be yourself, you can be independent, which is what some people don't realize or didn't realize.
So you're saying he wouldn't fall in line, and
Yes.
that caused the rift?
That's absolutely what I'm saying.
Okay. So, do this racing, doesn't watch the show, but people are telling him they're portraying him one way. How did you feel when you started hearing how they were portraying?
Well, just like they treated you unfairly. And I was disappointed, but it really boiled over for me when I actually saw it. I mean, I'd had enough. I think I just had enough of seeing it, and I just happened to show up out there at the right time.
So we're talking about, well, but before we get to that, so a big thing that was always said that used to really set you afire, you always said, was what? Reaper can't.
Reaper can't drive. Oh my goodness. That did set me afire because I have seen James drive the Reaper car out of lots of situations. So if he couldn't drive, he probably would not be here now. And I mean, that is one thing. You are a great driver.
Well, even Big Chief said there's one thing about Reaper that nobody can ever say, and he actually said it on camera once. He can drive. He can drive on the street. But that was the thing that caused you a lot of aggravation.
Absolutely, it caused me a lot of aggravation. I don't want to see that negative stuff, especially when it's totally unwarranted. That's just keyboard warriors.
Okay, so let's talk about his relationship with the guys on the show. Who was he close with?
Really just Ryan, Dominator, Jeff Lutz, those are really about the only three that I can think of.
Who's the guy that he always had the most respect for of everybody on the list?
Oh, he's always had tons of respect for Sean.
Sean Ellington.
Sean Ellington.
Why?
Just because he still because he had a fast car. He was, never really backdoored him, never talked behind his back. In fact, tried to help him. He tried to say, hey, tried to tell him things without telling him things. And sometimes you say that to you in the heat of the moment, you don't quite grasp what they're trying to tell you. But I think Sean still has that sportsman-like mentality, like you do.
Okay, so there was one instance that was probably the time that he felt the worst about something on that show. Do you remember when that was? And it involved Sean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. So, Colin, you know, the thing about Reapers, he was kind of a little bit respectful about his call-outs. Like, oh, I'm gonna let this guy call out, or I'm gonna let that guy call out, and he would kind of hang back and not just jump on somebody for a call-out. And, you know, if they were broke, if they were wrecked, if they were, you know, whatever, he still held some kind of level of respect for those guys. And then sometimes that level of respect would kind of bite him in the ass, because then somebody else who didn't have any respect for it would jump in and call it out. So, you know, call out was the name of the game. Call out's how you kept going forward. So they told him one time, you know, you got to call them out regardless. And he had a little bit of a struggle with that, and then decided, okay, I'm going to do it.
Who told him that?
Sean told him that. So,
was Sean the only one that told him that?
No. I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
I don't think so.
Who else? I mean, they told him you have to call people out.
Yeah, I told you that too. I mean, that was the deal. So anyway, the hardest decision he ever made was to call Sean out with a broke car. Knowing Sean was broke, but still had to do that, still had to make that call out. It's probably the toughest pill to swallow out there at that time, was to call out somebody that you actually did respect.
So he called him out. Sean's car was broke. Sean's car was broke.
Yes.
And he called him out with Sean's car broke.
Yes. And Sean fell out and raced him anyway. Because...
So he outran Sean because Sean had a broke car. How was his car?
This was broke too.
So he called out a broke car with a broke car. Why?
Because they had been pressing upon him that you have to call out.
So, you know what exactly was said. So, when he called Sean out, did he think Sean was going to back down?
No.
So, he pulled his broke car out against Sean's broke car,
Yep.
and they raced.
Yep.
How'd he take that? Doing what you said, he would never call out somebody with a broke car.
No. Oh, he felt terrible doing that. He didn't want to do it, but he knew it was necessary.
Okay. So, how long has it been going on?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay. I'm going to try to wrap it up and get closer to the end. So, what? The D's Nuts car. Now, that's the most controversial thing. Everybody said he cheated. He put metal panels over a carbon car, purposely tried to sneak that car through and cheat. Why did he do that?
Well, at that point in time, to prove that their rules were, they got to pick and choose their rules. The rule was steel, roof, and quarters. So that car had steel, roof, and steel quarters.
Well, why did he build a carbon car and then put steel roof and quarters on it? Why did he just build a steel roof and quarter car?
Just to prove the vagueness of the rules and how they apply to some and not others, or how they'll split hairs for one, but not the other.
But now they're
acceptable for one, but not acceptable for another.
So he built a carbon fiber car and then put quarter pounds on it that had to have cost more money and been heavier than if he just built a steel roof and quarter car.
And it was. But he wanted to prove a point. He wanted to shine a light on the rules.
Okay. So, just to prove the rules, he went out and bought a carbon car, put steel roof and quarters on it.
Well, that's not exactly how that went. He was building the carbon car initially because others had true pro mods.
Okay, you're talking about when Chief and Jeff Lutz had pro mods.
Yes, yes, because at that moment, that was acceptable. Well, then all of a sudden, halfway through the build of the carbon fiber car, then those other two cars were off the list and obsolete, not allowed. So then you had to shift gears to put the steel roof corners to still fit the rules. It's racing.
So he was building the car when pro mods, glass bodies, composite cars was legal.
Yes.
And then he put the steel roof and quarters on it. But why did he hide it from everybody? Why did nobody know about it?
Hide it.
Well, the way they portray it on TV, it just all of a sudden got brought up, and all of a sudden he got caught with this car.
Well, that's not what they filmed. That's just what they showed. Because they filmed plenty.
What did they film?
Well, I mean, they filmed a few of the guys at the house checking the car out. The car was at Bristol in all its cobbled together glory because it looked rough when we took it there. But it was laid out, no wrap. You could see that it was a metal roof and quarters put on that carbon fiber body that we had.
So
it was not a secret.
So everybody on the list knew what that car was from the beginning? You say they filmed. They filmed him building this car?
Yes.
And some of the guys from the list?
They filmed some of the guys from the list coming to the shop to check out what you were building.
Do you remember who came up?
I specifically remember Monty coming over. And I can't remember. Ryan came over. Dominic, I believe. And then they filmed us out there working on the car.
Did they film me putting the steel roof and quarters on the car?
Well, they filmed us grinding the weight out of some of it to go on the car. I mean, they knew where it was going, where we were going with that whole thing. Yeah.
So this entire car build was filmed with the intent, if I understand what you're saying, is 100% you saying, not me saying. They filmed him building this car to show that the rules on the list, how they could be interpreted.
Exactly.
What was all of a sudden the blow up where he forced the issue on the car? If everybody knew about the car and he'd been racing the car for what, 1 or 2 seasons?
Yeah. Seems like 1 season. Maybe 2. I don't remember.
So
some of that part of our life all runs together.
So what brought this steel roof and quarters over a carbon car that everybody swore he built to cheat? If all these guys on the list knew about it, why all of a sudden did it come to light on an episode?
Well, because on the previous episode, the car was broke. It was broke. And they were...
This we're coming to the point where you had enough, where you said you had enough.
Oh, yeah. The car was broke. It was broke. And, like, should not have been oiling down the street. It should have been loaded in the trailer and taken home.
Did he bring a broke car?
No. He never brought a
and Jackie.
Correct.
And that was for the 10 spot.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he brought a car.
Yeah. Well, and so more on that. I show up out at race night, and production's like, "Can you step back from the car?" And I'd already gotten a phone call, so I already knew what was going on out there. That you raced once. They were trying. The car was broke. They wanted you to race again. There was 9 other cars out there, or 10 with Jackie included, that could be out there racing. There was no point in you doing it.
But if him and Jackie raced for the 10 spot, and then did he win the race against Jackie?
And he did win the race against Jackie.
So he defended his spot.
He was 10. He defended his spot.
The car had problems on that race?
The car had problems on that race and broke. So the typical rules are, 1, you get to defend your spot. 2, if you defend your spot and you win, then you don't have to race again. You don't have to take the next call.
You don't have to race down.
Right, you don't have to race down. And so since he started in 10 and he kept 10, there was nowhere else to go. It's only a 10-car list.
Oh. Okay, so now, the way the rules work in that, he could have called out the next car, which I believe was Shane.
Yes.
Why didn't he call Shane out?
You know.
I lost connection.
It's just a little matter.
Oh, is he still going?
Yeah. I don't know, because I was not there at that point in time.
Is that the night Shane wrecked his car?
No, it was not. It wasn't, because the night Shane wrecked his car, you ran down to where he was and pulled him out and rolled over in the grass, because that was shortly after the whole, you better call them out regardless of what they're doing or what kind of shape they're in. So,
so he defended the spot.
Yeah.
And they loaded the car up.
Well, no, the car was broke, and they kept pushing Jackie to come back out. He kept telling Jackie no, and they kept insisting that he had to race Jackie.
Why did he have to race Jackie?
Well, that's the question of the day, because he'd already fit the rule. The rule was defend your spot. If you win, you don't have to race again.
Okay, so his car was legitimately broke.
Yeah, by this time his car is legit broke.
He's already defended his spot.
Yes.
And they're pushing him to race.
Yes.
Why were they pushing him to race? Was anybody else racing?
Well, in the beginning, they had plenty of other races to get through the night, but why they kept insisting on him racing the broke car, I honestly don't know. But by this point in time, production wants to get in there and they want to film, because at the front of the pack, they're talking about, well, your car's broke and nobody's back there even trying to fix it. Well, there were people back there trying to fix it. When production comes back there and says, hey, will you step back from the car so we can film nobody working on it? I said, Well, I said a little more than that. But the gist of it was,
I think exactly, which I will interject on this. I think exactly was, you said, fuck you and production and every one of you fucking people, and told everybody to stay with the car and keep working on it.
Yeah. That I was not going to allow them to film anything that would support the bullshit that was being said elsewhere.
So there was a big vote. Anyway, he raced the car again.
Yeah, and then he raced the car again against Jackie, and miraculously got the car to the line first. Just before he got to the line, somehow Jackie's his truck died and wouldn't restart while you're in the burnout. So basically, you got burned down at the end on purpose.
So he's got his broke car to the line, ready to race, and Jackie's not there.
Yeah, Jackie's truck died just before the start line.
So normally the rules are, if you do your burnout,
Yes.
You take the line, another car's not ready. They sent you. That didn't happen?
No, it didn't. For a long time.
So, sitting at the line with a broke car until Jackie gets up there, and then what happened?
Well, your car was way too hot to do anything, so Jackie won.
Did you ever move? Did the car ever move?
I don't think so. I think you come bailing out of the car screaming and yelling at Chief about what bullshit move that was to top off the whole deal. That was a bullshit move.
Okay.
And I got my whole redneck self all over Discovery. I'd have probably been climbing Chief like a tree too, because I was pissed about that whole situation.
So everybody knew about the car. Chief, Sean, everybody knew what the car was. Everybody'd seen the car at another race.
Yeah.
But before it was wrapped. Okay. So what caused the confrontation where he said, if my, we watched the episode where he said, if my car is not legal and it's not fits the rules, then vote it off. Why did you do that?
Done with the bullshit.
So he had a car that fit the rules and it was still voted off?
Yes, and I was just to prove that they singled you out for stuff.
So we'll wrap this whole thing up. In general, if you could sum up this street outlaw 5 year, 6 year, 5 years, 6 years, that's an important question. So the only reason he never made it to the top is they were always screwing him over.
Most part.
So he was never.
Well, sometimes it was self-inflicted, but.
What do you mean self-inflicted?
Well, I mean,
I think one of his famous sayings is stepped on his dick.
Well, yeah. But
So he had legitimate shots at number one,
yes.
and failed to make it.
Yes. Yeah, because something would get unplugged or something wouldn't get. I mean, just little minor stuff that got overlooked that caused the issue.
So
And that was frustrating too. That was frustrating too.
So now, we'll wrap this all up. So the big thing is discovery money. Everybody on the list has big discovery money. So, and there's a lot been said that Reaper made his money on discovery. How much money did he make on this show?
As a whole, I mean,
If you take the 5 years, how much money did he make? How much did he profit by this show?
oh, nothing.
Nothing. How can you be on a show? Well, all right, you said that for the first year or two, first season or two, he didn't sign a contract, didn't get paid.
Right.
But if he was getting paid on these other ones, if he's getting paid, how's he not making money?
By the time you rent the track to test your car, you pay your crew, you have travel expenses, you have fuel expenses, you have parts to buy if something breaks, you have parts to buy for maintenance. By the time it's all said and done, you're not making anything, you're spending money.
So he lost money.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, now, we know you do the books.
Yeah.
So what would you estimate his total loss staying on this show?
A total over 5 years?
Yes.
Well, probably anywhere between 150 to 200 a year in the hole.
So he spent $150,000 to $200,000 a year racing on a show that he didn't make. Did he make half of that? Or that's what he's lost after he got the discovery money?
No, that's what he's lost after the money came in.
6 years at $100,000. That's $600,000 on the low side of what you just said.
For a specific number in comparison, MPK, for example, that was $300 or $3,000 in the hole every race.
Over 13 races.
Over 13 races. That's every race.
And he did this just because?
It's because he has a diehard passion and love for sport. There's no other explanation.
Could stupidity be one of the explanations?
Well, then there's that. You can't fix that.
If you're going to wrap this up, and let's say in 3 minutes or so, what is your general feeling overall of how it affected you, how it affected your marriage, and how does it stand today when he's no longer a part of it?
Well, it's really disheartening for me to see you put that kind of energy into something to not ever really get a positive result.
You don't think you ever got a positive result?
Well, I mean, you put that kind of energy and passion into something because you want to win. So, yes, there were wins along the way, but there weren't number one wins along the way. There weren't overall race wins. You know, and I'm bringing MPK into the fold now, but you know, it's just, for me, it's just disheartening to watch the wear, the tear on the person himself, and the pocketbook. I'm not gonna lie about that either.
What?
The pocketbook, the wear and tear on the pocketbook was just as rough.
So at one time, when he got with the Brooders,
oh yeah, the Brooders were a blessing. They were the biggest blessing to our program, hands down, ever.
Did he ever consider going back on the list?
He did.
Did they ever approach him about coming back on the list?
Yes, they did. That discussion happened, yes. And Brooders came on to help through MPK, but the plan going forward was to go back on the list with Reaper. And I think after just observing for about 4 or 5 races, decided. So in the beginning, 5 years ago, you go to race night, and I'm carrying this on, but you go to race night, it's packed. You know, everybody has a list. You're allowed so many people to come with you. And, I mean, everybody had their full number of people plus 10 probably out there. I mean, it was always full. And it was exciting, and people were cheering and excited to be out there. But when he decided to take Reaper back to the list, with Brooders, went out there a few nights just to check it out, see how the list, see how everything was shaking up.
No, the Brooders never went out there.
No, but
I
that
went
was
out
the
there.
intent. The intent to go back to the list with Brooders prior to taking the car.
And was the car ready to go back to the list?
I think pretty much. It was, yeah.
Because he had a good run at MPK with Brooders.
Yes.
Went to the semis.
Yes.
A few times. Almost got the $200,000 race in Bristol.
Yeah.
Set the world on fire the first time with Nick and Rick's Brooder.
Yeah.
So they've got the car ready. He signed back up.
Yeah.
Rumor has it he asked for a lot more money to come back.
Yes.
And they gave it because they wanted him back.
Yeah.
And he went to 2 or 3 episodes, seen him in 2 or 3. And then what happened?
Other than it was just boring out there.
another interview, and you can talk about the married, divorced, and have always been together throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
You can tell your side of that sometime. But has there been a discussion, will he ever go back to the list? In your opinion? You guys, we don't talk about it.
No, we don't talk about it. But I really doubt it. And
Do you think he misses it? You think I'm missing?
No. Well, you know, maybe just a tiny bit. A tiny bit. But I don't.
So if it was on you to say, yes, we're going, no, we're going back, what would your vote be? Honestly.
Well, honestly, my vote would be no. But if it's what you really wanted to do, I would support your decision.
Of course you would.
And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. If you wanted to do that all over again, I would do it all over again.
That'll never happen. That'll never happen. But the new car, when he lost, all right, we're going to change this up. When we lost Reaper in the orange car, were you happy that finally these two money pits that have caused all this aggravation and time and all that they're gone? And any time did you feel like, thank God?
Oh no, I was happy when COVID hit a year ago and they canceled MPK.
We're going to end it on that note right there. There you go, guys. I did not put Stacy up to say anything. I told her before we did this, I want you to be 100% honest, say your side that you've never got to say, whether it offended me or anybody else, which if it did offend anybody else, I give two fucks less because she means more to me than anybody else in the world. So that is my wife's perspective, untainted by me, having nothing to do with me. That is 100% her words. Now you guys know the Miss Reaper story. We're about to run out of gas.
Yeah, and battery.